Today I'm going to go over a MagSorc tutorial through several different builds, and going to kind of work through how they function and why they work. So this will be a little bit of a longer video than the usual build videos, as I'll be going over roughly 3 different builds. So the first one is the one I call my role player cheat build. It's an easy setup to use, doesn't have a whole lot to it, and you get all the buffs and things that you need for solo content. It's a really good like solo build. It works for Maelstrom, stuff like that. But it is a melee build because of the double daggers. So I'll go through the gear first. So the gear is almost the exact same stuff I'm running on all the builds, more or less, with a few little adjustments. So the front bar is going to be the same. You got your pillar and Nern dagger and your whirl at the depths dagger. You want one in Nern honed, one in charged. You want the Nern honed on the front bar and the charged on the back bar. For some reason that deals a little bit more damage. I know that when you go into the two-handed, or the dual wield, my bad, there's an ability that increases weapon and spell damage by the offhand weapons damage. Now you would think because of that, the Nern honed, because it increases the weapon damage and spell damage, would give you a better buff if it was on the back bar, but every time I parse with the Nern honed on the front bar, I hit harder than I do with it on the back. So Nern honed front, charged on the offhand. I like to put the flame enchant on the charged and the poison on the Nern. I haven't actually tried swapping those to see if that hits a little bit harder. But it works really well. So then pillar on the back bar with infused increased weapon and spell damage, and you want a great sword for that to use the two-handed skill line. So the reason that we're kind of doing this one of each deal on the front and then pillar on the back is for this setup. With this way you can run a monster set, Mauve Inferno in the case of a Sorc. You can also run the Harpooner's Waiting Kill and still have 2 5-pieces. So you got the Jewelry, Perfected Depths. Then you have Nern for several of the body pieces. You got Sash on Depths because it's a light, you want 1 light piece to get that extra penetration. And then I swapped out Head. You can also use light if you want to, just to give you a little bit more sustain. I'm still keeping it on medium just because I'm a little bit used to that at this point, but really light or medium, whichever you want to do will work. But I would recommend only having like 2 pieces of light though. But anyway, all the rest, so the chest, the hands, the feet, those are all Nern. So if you notice, that's only 3 pieces. With the dagger, that's only 4. But when you have the depths dagger, the depths waist, and then the 3 jewelry pieces, that is a 5-piece. So you got the 5-piece whirl on the front bar. So that'll give you your procs. And then when you swap to your back bar, you have the pillar greatsword. That's a 2-piece, plus the 3 pieces body. That gives you your 5-piece. So you proc the pillar on the back bar when you're using your light attacks, and you get your depths proc on the front bar when you're doing your light attacks there. And that's why that works. So the reason you run the pillar on the front is because it gives you the 4-piece. So you got a 4-piece on the front bar pillar and a 5-piece on the back. And then you got a depths 5-piece on the front bar and a 3 or a 4-piece of that on the back. So you basically have a 4-5 depending on which bar you're on. So that's how you can kind of control your procs. So the reason you want the 4-piece. So Nern, if you noticed, the 4-piece is decent. And then depths, if you notice, the 4-piece is also pretty decent. So you want to always have the most stat bonuses you can get. That's why this setup works the best. So that's the gear, and of course you're going to run everything Divines with max magic enchants, bloodthirsty jewelry with spell damage glyphs. It's pretty standard setup for any Magicka characters. So the next thing we're going to go into is character. The stats over here on this side on the right, not super important, but make sure you have everything into Magicka. And then come down here and you're going to make sure you have the Thief for your Mundus. I also use the Ghastly Eye Bowl for the food. Just parse food. It's pretty easy to make and find. That's it with the stats right there so you can see it. But next up, we're going to go into the champion points. So the blue and the red both matter when you're doing champion points. Now, this build, I have set up for crafting bonuses over here in the green. So this is my crafter build as well. But going right into this. So the things I've even tried running Fighting Finesse instead of Exploiter, even on a 3 mil dummy. And Exploiter still hits harder. So, Exploiter, Master at Arms, Deadly Aim, and Wrathful Strikes for your 4 perks in the blue tree. Red, we're going to go with Sustained by Suffering. This helps with your regen while you're in combat. Same with the Siphoning spells. Same with the Rejuvenation, and then Boundless Vitality. Just gives you a little bit more health, helping make you a little bit more sustainable. Now, as you notice, these are all 50-point things, so you're going to have 200 CP to even put in here. So, generally, 600 to 800 CP is right around the end mark you'll need. One of the guys in my guild, Hack Sloth, is actually hitting right around 105, 110. He's not even quite 800 CP. He hit 100 DPS right around 700. Level 700. So it is definitely possible, but you just have to know what you're doing. Watching YouTube videos like this one helps, so you can kind of get an idea of what it is you're doing. But anyway, these are the perks for the CP. The green doesn't really matter a whole lot for damage output, just these two. Red is mostly sustain, blue is your damage output. So the next thing we're going to go and look into is the skills. So the skills is a really basic setup. You're going to go with your crystal frag spam. You have your execute on your Y button. You got a ward on your B just to help with your sustain, help you stay alive. Then you got inner light for the buff. Now the way I have this set up is you don't have to use spell power pots. You can just use trash magicka pots that you get from mobs or friends or whatever. Just drop random drops. You don't have to even craft potions. You can just use the basic magic ones that you find everywhere on the floor when you kill shit. That way it saves you a lot of money, so you're not burning through all your expensive potions when you're out, you know, doing quests or normal dungeon queues or whatever else that isn't necessarily super serious content. I just like to save my potions for the serious content. Also, I'm a broke bitch, so that has a little bit to do with it too. I just don't have a whole lot of gold at the moment, so any way to save that gold up for more gold mats and upgrading gear and stuff is just a nice thing for me. So I'm running inner light inner light on the front bar, and then crit surge on the back bar for those buffs. So inner light gives you your major savagery and prophecy. That's your crit. And then you got your crit surge, and that gives you your major sorcery, which is your spell damage buff. So you don't actually even need the potions at all. So then I'm doing that instead of the double pet. So now I'm only running one pet with the Tormentor double barred over here. So then I'm having Dawnbreaker from the Fighters Guild for the extra 3% damage bonus just for having it on the bar. Don't generally use that ultimate unless you're in execute and you don't have enough to drop the atro. So if there's only, you know, a little bit, if you'll kill the guy before you could drop an atro, or if dropping an atro just wouldn't be worthwhile due to the short amount of time before the enemy's dead, go ahead and just use the Dawnbreaker, because it will buff you just a little bit. Not a whole lot, but it will a little. So, oh, I need to morph that. You want Flawless Dawnbreaker, increases your weapon and spell damage. I need to save that. I don't know why I didn't have that morph. That would have derp. That would have probably raised my damage a bit. There we go. All right. I don't know how I missed that. Yeah, so Flawless Dawnbreaker gives you a buff to your weapon and spell damage after you use it, so in Execute, that's real nice, especially, you know, on lower health enemies. So, now the back bar, you've got your Stampede, so that's your critical charge from the two-handed skill line. That's how you proc your weapon enchant on your bar. That's the way you're going to be able to get that weapon and spell damage enchant on the back bar, is from the enemy standing in this AoE that this ability drops. So it puts down a 15-second area of effect damage over time on the floor underneath the enemy that you hit. They can move out of it, but generally you can just reapply it because it costs stamina, not magicka, and you're a magicka character. Now if you notice, the pack bar is almost all stamina abilities. The reason for that is here in the recent updates they've been doing a hybridization theme where they've been kind of shifting everything so that all ability stats are based off your highest combat stat, not just the stat relating to that skill. So normally in the old days, these stamina abilities would have been based off of weapon damage, but now they based off of whatever's higher, your weapon or spell damage. So because of that, you can now use stamina abilities on the back bar instead of using mag, and that helps you with your mag sustain so you don't burn through your magicka so quickly. And the stamina abilities also hit really hard because of your high mag stats. So all in all, it's actually a lot easier to hit harder now than it used to be in days past. So again, back bar, you're going to start out with that Stampede just to get the enchantment going. Then you're going to use Hurricane. That's going to give you a speed boost, some physical resistances, and it also deals a lot of damage in an area around you. Again, it's only good for melee range stuff. Then you got your Barb Trap. That gives you your Minor Force. That's a nice little buff there, crit damage by 10% for the duration. So every rotation, you're just going to swap back Light Attack Stampede, Light Attack Hurricane, Light Attack Barb Trap, and you're going to come here to the Crit Surge and just make sure you keep enough uptime on that. You won't have to do it every rotation. It's every 2 rotations, roughly. And then you got your Greater Storm Atronach on the back bar. You'll be dropping that. So I'm going to just do a little 3-mil dummy test here, just to kind of show you the rotation and what kind of damage you can expect from this build. So first of all, you're going to do your pre-buff. And just a real basic frag spam with a light attack in between. Reapply the pet, and then just back bar, go those 3 abilities. Swap real quick, and that back up. Back to the regular back bar rotation. So the only time you actually need to cast your ward is when you are going to be taking some damage that you don't know if you can survive just by blocking. Otherwise, don't even hit it at all. So as you notice, the sustain isn't great without other people around. It happens, don't worry about it too much. In content, it'll be a little bit easier. You can always use player crafted potions too. They have a little bit higher stats. So if you run out, you can always just get on your back bar and just spam that for a bit until your mag gets back up. But generally in content, dungeons and things like that, it'll be a little bit easier. But as you see, I still did 1.5 minutes, right around 30k damage. Which for a basic build like this, really good. That's good enough to do Vet Maw Vorkaj. So I mean, that kind of damage, even with the bad sustain, will give you a good amount of damage, even more than you need to do any Vet Craglorn hard mode trial, or Vet Asylum Sanctorum, Vet Mob, Lorcage. You can do all that kind of easier vet content with this build fairly easily. And if you want, you can always upgrade and get a little bit higher damage by swapping the Empowered Ward down here to this Daedric Prey here. And that'll increase the pet damage a little bit too. So you can actually hit pretty hard with this build. But that's just the general build for this solo. So the next one I'm going to go into is the ranged build. So this is oop, a bird's over there attacking. Come here, birdie. Silly birdie. Gotta wait till I'm out of combat now. There we go. Alright, so now we're gonna go with the ranged build. So, I just did an iron test on this yesterday. I actually just made this build, redid it the other day. But, it's a double staff, so if you're not really into the, daggers and greatsword look, you can just go with the double staff. It works just as well. Now this one, as you can see, is a double pet. So as far as the champion points, you're going to notice that the champion points are exactly the same on blue, and they're exactly the same on red. So the CP is the same, your Mundus and everything's the same. The only thing that's going to change is the gear a little bit. So you got your pillar on the front bar. You also have your Maelstrom on the back bar. You don't have to run Maelstrom, but since you're going to be using wall, it's just a buff to your wall, so you might as well just get the extra damage. Anyway, but you got your pillar front bar. You still running your Maw, double Maw, two-piece monster, but I'm running light on the head just for a little bit more sustain, because if you're doing a ranged build, this build is mostly designed for things like VAS, Asylum Sanctorum, when you're not anywhere near a healer, things like Maelstrom when you're by yourself and you need, you know, ranged interrupts or to hit stuff. It's just an all-around good build, but it's specifically designed for when you're not close to healers to get the good synergies and stuff like that. This is a more mag sustain build than the solo build is, but it's a ranged build also. So, anyway, pillar front bar precise with the flame, back bar infused with the weapon buff. Then you got your pillar, you got depths, Nern, depths, Nern. You got your 3 for the depths there, and you got your depths and depths. So that's your 5-piece. You're always going to have the 5-piece depths no matter what bar you're on. Then you got, instead of running the waiter kill, you're running just the depths there. So then you got your boots, your hands, and your chest and Nern. That's your 3-piece, and you got the 2-piece staff on the front bar for the 5-piece. So you can only proc that on the front bar, but you're only using 2 to 3 abilities on the back bar. I'll get to that in a minute. So you're going to have those set bonuses pretty much the whole fight. You won't have to worry about the bar swapping back and forth to proc stuff like you did with the melee build. So you run the same food, same Mundus, so the only difference is going to be your ability setup now. So I'm running Crushing Shock. You could also just run Crystal Frag spam with the Execute like on the melee build, but I figured since we're going full ranged, most times you're going ranged, you're going to need an interrupt. Like in Vast, you need an interrupt. In Maelstrom, you need an interrupt. There's a lot of things that this build would just be handy for, not even because of the range, just because of the interrupt. So this is an interrupter build that I'm running. This is a build that I've been using for years. Just tweaked a bit for the new update. But so Crushing Shock is going to be your spammable. Then you got your Crystal Frags. You got your Daedric Prey. Now again, you can swap this Prey out for a ward if you need it. It's not a big deal. The damage difference is noticeable, but in the long run, it's better to be alive and deal a little bit less damage than it is to be a floor lord and not deal any, and then make someone else stop dealing damage to come get you up. So, in the long run, this will be a little bit better to run a ward if you're not sure of the content as well, or if your healers are questionable or your tanks are questionable. But anyway, you're going to do the double pets, your Familiar and Tormentor with the Atro front bar. You're going to run the Destruction Staff, Ultimate back bar, also double pets there. Then you're going to run your Unstable Wall of Fire to proc your enchantment. Then you're going to have your Mystic Orb for your AoE cleave, plus it's the synergy if anyone's around to help them with their sustain. Then you got your Psijic ability, Channeled Acceleration. Now you're not running Trap Beast because you're not going to be close enough to stuff to drop the Trap Beast. So Channeled Acceleration is how you're going to get your Minor Force, you see there. Except it gives you your Minor Force for a minute. Instead of the roughly 30 seconds or so, 20 to 30 seconds that you get the Trap Beast Minor Force. This is for a full minute. So you'll end up having 3-4 rotations before you have to apply this. You'll only be casting these two abilities mostly on the back bar. It's a really easy setup to do. Now the Channeled Acceleration, as you can see here, does take a little bit to cast, but it lasts for so long that it's going to end up being way worth it. So again, I'm going to do just a short 3 mil dummy test just to kind of show you what to expect and kind of show you the rotation. So come over here and you know, do your pre-buff, boom, boom, hit this, and then just start right up. So we are using Essence of Spell Power for the potions. And then try to keep your pet buff going. And it's okay every once in a while just to throw a little heavy attack in there. Their heavy attack. Come on. There we go. And as you can see, the sustain isn't great because I'm still wearing medium armor. But it's easy to just throw in a heavy attack every rotation if you need to. And again, in actual content, you'll have a little bit better sustain than you do on a dummy. I don't know why that is necessarily, but it is in fact a thing. About the same damage as the solo build. Again, if you get your sustain a little bit better in content and whatnot, your damage will go up, but it's still an easy 30k. I tested this build last night on the Iron Dummy there, on the trial dummy, and it's hitting right around 90-95k, which is pretty damn good. So it's a pretty solid all-around build to use just for, you know, utility purposes. Okay, so the last build is the full damage build. So as you can see, I don't mess around with my full damage build. I'm going to take this mask off just because it looks silly. Doesn't really have anything to do with damage, but it just looks cooler when you can see the red eyes. Anyway, so this one is also going to be a double pet. This is also a melee build. Now you're going to notice this is pretty similar to the other melee build I had, the solo build, but this is specifically designed for maximum damage. So you got your frag spam, your execute, your Daedric Prey, your double pet. You got your Dawnbreaker front bar. Why is that not morphed? What am I doing? Alright, anyway, you got your Dawnbreaker, you got your double pets, Prey, Execute, Frag Spam, then back bar, Stampede, Hurricane, Barb Trap, double pet, and Greater Storm Atronach. And again, the CP is identical. The CP is exactly the same for all three builds. So we're going to do another little 3 mil test here because the dummy tests take, you know, 3+ minutes, like twice as long. So just a nice little easy here. So go ahead and start up by doing that. Get your potions and then just go ahead and get right into it. So this build, you're going to be hitting 2 curses on the front bar. The rotation's a little bit longer than the other rotations are. I mean, it's still going to be a 15-second, but you can fit a few more ability casts in this way. But as you'll notice, there's still going to be a lot of sustain issues here on the little 3-mil guy. It doesn't really give you any good sustain buffs. Right there, easy mode. As you can see, that hits way fucking harder. That's almost 10k higher just there. Oops, tagged that guy, my bad. But 36 up from 29. So, I mean, that's almost a 40k with no buffs other than the ones that I have. So, this build is built only for trials and, like, you know, better teams that are built for the team, have good team composition. Again, this is better in 12-man content, but this build is just as good in 4-man content too. But I recommend, though, if you're with a group that's not a raid, like a core team or a really well-organized group, swapping this prey out and putting on the empowered ward just for survivability. Especially if you're having lag spikes, or if it's after a recent update like this one that broke fucking the whole game, where you can't block and you can't do a lot of shit a lot of the time. So I mean, it's just when you're in sketchy situations, that ward is a lifesaver. But yeah, that, as you can see, way better. Way better. But that's, in a nutshell, that's the MagSorc. Those are full damage all the way down to just basic stuff. And if you wanted to, for the solo, you can always run a staff on the front bar instead of the daggers if you really want to. Just, you know, for heavy attacks and a little bit more mag recovery. You can also try running light armor, but doing both of those things, you will sacrifice a little bit of damage output. But that's the MagSorc. I hope it was useful, and I'll see you guys again